Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
Hey, good morning, James. How's it going?
Doing good. How you doing?
Hey, good. Listen, I came in through the green room this morning. Well, I guess it's the pink square room now. Would be. And I met today's guest. And I got to tell you, I don't know her well. I know who she is. And I can already tell this is a rare person. And I mentioned it to you just before we started. I already like her before I know her. I don't know. I hardly know anything about her.
Yes.
And she is so much fun. We just shot the breeze for about 5 minutes. And I'm so excited to learn about her today.
I know her a little bit, and I'm so excited to get to know her a little bit more. And so we want to welcome Annette Aviles-Natal of Excellent Title Partners. Annette.
Hello.
Hey, welcome in on the show.
Here.
I'm excited, very excited
We're
to
so
be here.
excited you're here. So Annette, we know each other obviously through our networking and our mutual friends, but I love your story. I love how you kind of came out of working for someone else, then you created your own business, you kind of have a smaller firm. And I've learned so much about title just by our conversations that I didn't even know was. So I'm so excited that we can share all this information with our listeners. So do me a favor, let's just talk about you for a second. Who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get to where you are right now? No pressure. Just take your time,
I know, wow. I am originally from New York, third generation Hispanic from Puerto Rico.
Oh.
And coming and starting a new business was a big deal for me. Being third generation, it was hard enough to even think of me getting college educated and taking that giant step, coming from blue collar workers and thinking, wow, my girl's going to go to college. That was a big deal for us. Mm-hmm. And even till this day, my mother has no idea what my degree is in. She's like, I'm so proud of my
is that right?
daughter.
Oh,
yeah, it's those
funny
things where she keeps going to college. She just keeps going back and, going to school. I'm just so proud of her. So it's more of a self-gratification thing at this point because I feel like I was giving back to my family. I know their struggles. I know what they went through. My mother came to the U.S. when that big, I don't want to say the big boat, I don't want to seem as though I'm being inappropriate.
Sure.
But when lots of Puerto Ricans were coming into the U.S., which was in the 50s.
Okay.
My mom came in, she was 6.
Oh, wow.
And coming into New York, she went into Brooklyn, which was a primarily Hasidic Jewish neighborhood. She was racially targeted as a baby, 6 years old.
Oh, my.
So everything that she did her life, and I speak very highly of my mom, she made me who I am, which when I talked about, some of the things that are very dear to me, it created the individual that I am.
Right.
She's a very strong, independent woman who she doesn't need a man to take care of her. Mm-hmm. She had that mentality and that sort of I grew to feel that way, to understand why it was so important to her to have her, eldest daughter college educated and give me everything that I knew she couldn't afford to give me, but she did. So I gave back. I knew that I needed to make changes in my life as I became a young adult. I married young. So I did make mistakes, but I have 2 beautiful things out of that big mistake. I have 2 sons that have given me 7 grandbabies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my.
So
Did one just get married?
Yes. So my younger guy got married to a beautiful young lady. They have a daughter together, and she had a daughter from her previous marriage. So I do have 2 granddaughters from them, and then the other 5 were from my eldest son.
Nice.
He wants a big family.
Mm-hmm. Which is huge, right? Because of all the Puerto Rican families I know, without exception, they're all about family.
Yeah. We're from a tight niche family. Uh-huh. So that actually, how can I say, it doesn't change who I am and what I do and as far as business and the person that I am, but everything I do is for my family. My entire day revolves around my mother, my husband, my children, my in-laws, my daughter-in-laws, they are my support system, and they're my biggest cheerleaders. So when I decided that I was going to, break these huge walls and I'm going to leave corporate America and I'm going to go out and start my own title agency.
Yeah.
They were the first ones that were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing this. I'm so excited. This is, the best thing that you could have ever said. But I still had my own demons inside thinking that I couldn't do this. Right. I'm not strong enough. My family, what am I thinking? I come from a blue collar working family. What am I thinking to open up my own title agency? This is a big deal. This is, no one's done this in my family.
Well, I think that self-doubt is a good driving factor as long as you don't let it cripple you, right? And being able to be an entrepreneur, there's a lot of scary things. And so our brain kind of tricks us into, are we being an imposter? Hear Bonnie talk about being an imposter, imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and I'm going to be found out any minute. Somebody's going to find out I'm a fraud.
I'm really faking it, and I'm an imposter. But the reality is that we all, in a way, kind of fake it in a way. And so I think that's a very normal feeling. Curious, you've not always been in title, right?
27 years.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yes.
So you've been there a long time.
Well, in my past life, as I say, I was a nurse's aide. And when I started going to college, I actually went to college to be a physical therapist.
Oh.
So I started taking all these, biology classes, medical. I even did biology with cadaver.
Wow.
I did all these classes thinking that, wow, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a physical therapist and that's going to be wonderful. I'll take care of my boys. My youngest one was going on 3 at the time when I decided to go back to college. So I was an adult going back to college with 2 babies, considering divorce at the time with my first husband, so their father. And it was a big deal for me to make that step.
I'm sure.
But again, I had my family. The minute I told my mom, I'm going back to school, she was at my house every weekend to take care of the babies and help me. And so we have a huge support system within our family. Once I did make the decision to get divorced, I went back home, and home being New York, excuse me, and I met an attorney who was looking for an administrator in the office. I needed to, find a job, take care of my children, and I met an attorney who changed my life. Her name is Carla Miller. If she does hear this in the future, she changed my life. She taught me a career. And she fascinated me in this industry that everyone just looks as though, oh, this is just insurance. It's just so boring.
Yeah, it's almost an afterthought to the average customer inside the transaction of real estate.
You just think you just need it. Oh, sure, it's title insurance. She was so passionate about what she did. She was a real estate attorney in New York, but she lived and breathed title and all she talked about in the stories. And she explained it to me by telling me stories, which is why now I'm such a good storyteller when it comes to scenarios, because that's the way that I was taught. So for me, to teach someone or to talk to someone about a scenario, it's easy for me to tell a story. That's what she did for me. When she says to me one day, I need you to work this up, and it's a subordination. And I'm thinking that she had about 5 heads. A subordination? What's a subordination? She went through the prompts and gave me this whole story about, borrowing money and then holding it in one side. And, you're keeping that money on one side, but you're taking out money again. And it was mind-boggling.
You really got an education through her, didn't you?
She was super. I stayed with her throughout the time that I stayed in New York before I moved to Florida. She gave me such a huge background in title that when I came here, I was able to land a job in the title industry as a closer, and I have not gone back ever since.
Wow.
I worked as a closer. I did post-closing. I did underwriting. I worked in sales. I did business development. I managed a company. I became the director of a company. So for me, I think I learned all the skills that I needed within these past 27 years to then finally give me the confidence to say, all right, sister, get out of the seat, out of your comfort zone, and start your own agency. And that was huge. That was huge. That was...
well, tell us a little bit about how that happened. What was that process like?
The birth of excellence.
Well,
title.
There's good and bad. There's good and bad to it because it was a great enlightening moment for me to make the decision to be a minority, be a Latin woman, deal with the demons that we deal with every day, where it's like a facade, I feel like sometimes. When you're talking about the imposter syndrome, I feel like I'm so confident. Why am I confident on the outside, and on the inside, I'm feeling like I can just cry and melt down at any moment. And it's really hard to deal with that day to day. And the title insurance is an industry where there are a lot of men in leadership roles. Yes, there's powerful women that are doing all the work. We're running operations and we're, doing all of that. But I kind of feel as though, at least my experience, all the men that were in higher positions, all the folks that were in higher position were men. And I wanted to be that person. I didn't want to be the female who's taking orders. I wanted to be the person who's in leadership.
Right.
And I felt with my background, my educational background, and my knowledge that I could be there, or I should be there. And when I decided, the company that I was working for, which I was very happy in my role, they sold the company to a group of, can I say this stuff on here?
You can.
Okay. They sold the company to a group of hedge fund guys.
Yeah.
Which as an investor, wow, good for you. That's wonderful that you have the money and the means and the capability to do that. But I am still that person, so I'm torn between that person who should be a leader and then the person who's just a softie and feels that their employees are really important.
Yeah.
And they've run the company for you, because you can have people in leadership and everyone manning the ship, the captain of the boat. But if you don't have, all the folks that are going to help you get there, and if you don't treat them well, your company is going to go nowhere.
It really takes a team, doesn't it?
It takes a team, and they had a different mentality. They had different goals.
I told you she was fun. She's got this great mentality that listen, it's part of our hole in the wall credo. It's very easy for us at the top to kind of say we're great. We really are nothing compared, without the great help that we have in our crew. I mean, rarely do Bill and I actually go out the job site and see the customer anymore. It's our staff that we've trained, we trust, and we love that are out there doing it. So you're right in the same heart that we are in. So
they're the face of your business. And, you can have the fancy title, you can have the position, you can have the means, but if you're not giving your employees and your team, because I hate to say employees, like even the folks that I worked with in the past, they're not employees, they were my coworkers.
Right.
And I always kept that mentality, because I am not shy about cleaning a bathroom.
Yeah.
Or if, the little thingy on the toilet is broken, I will go get a kit and I will fix it myself.
And you even know the official name. It's a thingy.
It's a thingy. So you have to be able to do it all.
Yeah.
And if you don't treat your employees well and your team players, then they are not going to shine for you.
Yes.
And when this change in the company came about, I knew that was my breaking point.
Okay.
I knew that was when I had to say, okay, stop dreaming about it. Stop looking at your business plan and putting it aside. This is where you need to be.
So I'm curious. You just hit on it. You already had been thinking about it and had a business plan. Is that correct?
For years.
And so at that point, do you just pull it out and you start executing, refine it a little and start executing it?
I refined it, but then I started having conversations with the people that I trust.
Okay.
One, of course, my husband, he's my biggest supporter. He, even though I may be making a decision that he knows, because he's the one who has that, that mentality, because he's an auditor at heart. So he's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I'm looking at the numbers and they just don't make sense. Well, to me, it does, because I have a big plan and I know that it's going to take a lot to get to that next level. So just work with me. That's what I told him last year. I said, just work with me, baby, and, just let's get through this hump. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And he did.
That's great.
So he's my biggest supporter. When I decided to leave the company, it was hard. It was so hard. I cried even when I gave in my resignation. I loved that position. I loved the position I held. I just was not happy with the changes that had been made, and I couldn't rightfully talk to one of my coworkers and make a change when I knew that it was coming from up above and it wasn't a change that would benefit them or the team or the location of the branch. And so I knew that opening up my own agency, I was going to be able to implement things the way that I feel they should be made. And I'm going to make mistakes. And there's, nothing is perfect.
Sure.
But I think that because I am very emotional and I think things through first before I make a rash decision, I think that is going to get me to that next level.
Do you remember the first client you had?
Of course. The first client I had with my new company?
Of course.
Yes. So the first customer I had was a customer of mine that I had been working with for years.
So someone who already knew you.
Somebody who knew me. And the moment that I reached out to him and I said to him, hey, I opened up my own title agency. So you've been trusting me all these years. Now you're going to send it to me instead of someone else because they knew the company name.
Yeah.
And of course, he said a couple of fancy words. But he said, I'm so happy for you. Of course, I'm so excited that your first file is going to be mine. So it was very rewarding. Then that's when I knew I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm really doing this. And there's been challenges. Like I said, that's what made me say, yay, Annette, you can do this. But then there's also the days of insecurity or the days where you're not getting new business or the challenges in the current market.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder now, you've gotten past your first client. Was there a line of people out your door waiting to do business with you initially?
Yes. So
really?
I was able to, the customers that I was working with, I was able to get them to work with me again. Most of them, I guess I should say, because it's not 100%. Some people also felt nervous because, I was just starting an agency.
Yeah.
And, is it just you? You're the only one handling the files right now, where they don't understand that you really just need a person to work it all up and clear title and do all of that.
Sure.
But so, yes, there were the folks that said that, yes, they would come to me and then they're scared, to leave their current folks that they're working with. But that comes along with the territory.
Sure. It's competitive.
It's very competitive. And then there's also the other title agencies that are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, even though I'm saying this out loud. But, and those are the ones
I feel like we should dig there just a little more.
I wouldn't talk ill of anyone. But
no, I'm thinking there's a specific set of rules that regulate what you guys do, right? You have to do things in a specific way.
We can't do kickbacks. We can share like marketing. So if they want to do like a campaign where they're sending out postcards, we can go 50-50 on them. There's lead generation platforms that I have that I also share lists of, folks that they can reach out to, prospecting calls and things like that, cold calls. But we just cannot give, like if you're a realtor and you ask me, hey, Annette, I'm going to give you this deal. Will you, after closing, give me back $500, let's just say? I can't do that.
Yeah, that sounds unethical.
Well,
yeah. Well, listen, knowing that
surprised.
we've got obviously mutual friends you've closed multiple deals for them. So you already have a great reputation. Ready to start your own business? How would you like a jumpstart? Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair is now offering franchise opportunities for strong entrepreneurs. When you franchise with Hole-in-the-Wall, we help you get up, running, and ready to start generating revenue fast. You get access to our comprehensive training program, continued support, and our proven business model that has allowed us to experience explosive growth. Achieve financial success while providing a valuable service to your community. Take the first steps towards achieving your entrepreneurial dreams. Go to holeinthewallfranchising.com. What I want to do is dig into a little bit of the education side, because I know you're really good at kind of teaching what title is. I'm a new homeowner. I don't know anything about title. I think of a title, think of a car title. I have, a car. I bought a car and I have a title. Tell me just a little bit about what the title is and the process of getting like a deal closed. What are some of the things you kind of go through?
So you actually made a good point because is sort of like a car title. You are getting...
It's proof of ownership.
Right, you're getting a proof of ownership. It's like a bill of sale. You're going to have that. We do call it vesting or title, as
is that
some
different
people
than a deed,
say
or is that
it.
the same thing?
It is a deed. So the deed is the document that actually creates that new vesting.
Gotcha.
So the deed will be from, yourself, James, and your spouse into Annette and her spouse. It's what basically gives you titling on that home or that property. But it's a process. Let's say our realtor partners send us a contract. They got a customer. They were finally able to get a good buyer on that transaction. Our business here in Central Florida primarily comes from the seller side, so listing controlled. So like the listing agent is the one that would select us as the title agency. In other parts of Florida, the buyer's agent or the loan officer.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes. So there's about 75% of the counties are seller controlled in Florida, but then there are several counties that are buyer controlled.
So it varies by county?
It varies, correct. So like Naples.
I wasn't aware of that. I did not know that.
Parts of Palm Beach. They're up north in some areas in North Florida. So it just really depends on some of the counties. Where the standard here is that the listing agent or the seller can select. If the buyer does select the title agent, there's certain fees that they have to pay according to the contract. Like I just got one that I'm closing this week that the buyer wanted to select me, and she found me on Google. I was really excited.
That's
Google.
terrific.
Yeah. So it wasn't like by word of mouth. She called out of the blue, and she's like, I found you on Google, and you had 5 stars. And I'm so excited. I know I was really excited. I'm like, yes, Google is working. But
it never gets old, does it?
I know. So I was really excited about that deal that I got. We're closing it this week. She selected me as a title agent. So she asked the seller, I want to work with Annette at Excellence Title. They are right in because they're in Altamont. So she said, they're right here in our neighborhood. You have to meet her. She's, explained the whole process to me. She's going to give you a call. She selected the title agent. So she's paying the title insurance and the transfer, the doc stamps to transfer title. So I was really excited. So yes, you don't necessarily have to be a seller or a listing agent. I can be selected by the other side, but the buyer has to pay it.
Right.
Which I'm from New York, and in New York, the buyer selects. So for me, that's norm. That's the norm, because as a buyer, I feel that, and again, the way that the attorney that trained me, she explained it to me, you're purchasing title insurance, you're purchasing a home or a property, you want to be the one to be sure that you are selecting the correct title agent and who you're working with. So that's sort of how I learned when I moved here to Central Florida, and I had to switch my mindset that now sellers are selecting, the listing agent is selecting me. But then I had to change my way of thinking and realize that it is the seller's responsibility to ensure that what they're giving the new homeowner, the new buyer, is free and clear in title. So that's when I do my homework. After I get the contract, I need to make sure that there's no judgments, there's no liens, there's title is actually in who we think title is in. The contract actually has the right people, because sometimes customers do not understand the questions that they're being asked, customers as sellers.
Yes.
And the listing agent may say, okay, well, you're going to sign the contract. I believe that you're the owner. And then we find out that folks passed away, that it really is not, Johnny's property, but it's Johnny's parents or their father. And they both passed on. And so there's just little things that we need to look at.
Let's dig into that. So let's dig into that just a little bit. So what are some of the things you have to kind of go through to kind of close? Obviously, you got to double check that that's the right person who owns the house.
Yeah, there has to be a chain of ownership, and you have to be able to chain of title, and you have to connect all those dots.
Yes, very good. You get a big star.
And then I know when I bought my house, the previous owner put a fence in, pulled a permit for the fence. Of course, that was 15 years later. The permit was never closed, and that was something that my title agent found that we had to address. Hey, you have an open permit on. I know that as business owners, if one of our customers fails to pay us, we can put a lien on the house And then that affects how they sell the house down the road too. So
correct.
Talk about
that you bring up a good point. When there's vendors involved, contractors, that becomes a huge issue, especially if the contractor has gone out of business, because it's not just a permit that's still open, but there could be fees that are affiliated or that they're owed. So if the vendor, the contractor puts a lien on that property, let's say it's $10,000, and the homeowner only paid $7,500 of that $10,000, we have to be sure that balance is paid before that contractor will give us a release. The only way that we can remove that lien from that property is by obtaining that release, having them sign an affidavit for us, and all of that needs to be recorded with our new deed. So we mentioned taking title. I cannot put the new homeowner in title unless all of those items are cleared. I just recently, actually one of our partners, I just handled a transaction for her that closed last week. That property had a roof done by one of our other folks. There was a roof that was replaced. There was an AC that was replaced. And there was other minor work that had been done by the roofing company. So I had 3 liens that were on the property that I needed to clear. Now, the roofing, fortunately, was already paid, so all they needed to do was verify. They received their funds. They needed to verify that it was paid. Everything cleared. They gave me the terminations. But the AC contractor was not paid in full, and they would not give me the release. I had to ask them for a balance. They were going to be paid, and I had to... And I always say sell my soul. It's just the way that I joke around about it. I had to call the contractor and sell my soul. I'll give you a check the day that we fund if you sign this document for me. The problem is that as a title agent, I cannot just take someone's word for it that they're going to release that lien, because they can just take the money and run, and it could take me 3 months to get them to sign that affidavit for me to release. I can't do that to the new homeowner.
Right.
So I have to be sure. What I've learned in the past is that if I can meet up with them, and I'll meet them wherever, let's meet up. I'll give you a check in hand. I'll bring the document with me. I'll notarize it. We'll have it done. Then I've taken care of my part. I can clear title for that new homeowner.
So then after you've got everything pretty well cleared, talk a little bit about a title insurance policy.
So once I know that all my items are cleared, so to say, clear to close on my end, I can then schedule the closing. I can have all my documents that I need to record. Once I know that I can clear all of, and I didn't mention my underwriter product. So when I request a couple of the searches that I need to review in order to clear title, one of them is the commitment that comes over from my underwriter partner. My underwriter will send me, and I call it my recipe. The underwriter will send me the commitment that gives me a recipe of what I need to clear in order to be able to transfer title.
Right.
So that's where I found out, oh, hey, I have 3 contractors. I have, a mortgage payoff. I might have a lien that now they've placed a list pendants, which can possibly become a foreclosure in the future. When I see that, that means that there is an attorney that's involved. Those payoffs are not easy to come by. Their attorneys have a time limit, and they want to stick to that time limit. If they say 21 days, you bet your sweet buns that you're going to wait 21 days to get that payoff from them. Wow. So it delays the being able to clear title and provide title insurance. I cannot close, and I will not close. And I'll get pressure. I'll get pressure from my lender partners. I'll get pressure sometimes from the sellers. I'll get pressure sometimes from the buyers, because let's say if they're doing a simultaneous transaction where they sold and they're buying, so there's 2 closings
they can be
that
in a
are
bind.
at stake. I can be in a pickle sometimes, because they'll have their moving truck outside with their dogs, with their
that's
family.
pressure.
Oh, I've had a couple of doozies where, my heart goes out to them, but you have to have all your puzzle pieces fit together before I can close. And when the day that I close and I fund, keys are given to the buyer, monies are given to the seller, everybody's happy, that's when then I can request a policy.
Okay.
Which is where we talk about title insurance.
And who is it that provides the policy actually?
The underwriter is the one who we can issue the policy through.
Okay.
So if it's a State Farm or a Great Florida Title, they're an entity, but they have to insure and bind their policies from.
And this protects a home buyer if
yeah.
something pops up later and there's a cost associated with it. You essentially have insurance. If I understand it correctly, you have insurance policy to help cover those costs.
Correct. And anytime that something comes up, whatever it may be, I tell the new homeowner, the buyers, please call me. Here's all my information. I give them a nice fancy little folder with all of their copies. Everything is in there. Hold that until the day that you decide to sell this home. You keep that, put it away somewhere, put it in your safe, put it somewhere, waterproof box. Because what if our systems are down? What if, files are lost? You have evidence that you have copy of that policy. So God forbid there was a divorce situation, let's just say. And the ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, comes and says, you closed that transaction and I didn't receive a penny. Basically, I can turn around and say, okay, well, we have, I have a policy. We can look at everything. Let's see what we have here. That policy will protect the new homeowner because we as a title agent and the underwriter who basically insured that product, we have to stand by that.
Sure.
We have to, hire an attorney if we need to, do whatever we need to do, go to court, make right by it. So that's why there's no way that I would want to close the transaction because my name is on the line.
Yeah.
That's, me as a title agency, I'm the one that's the face. It's not the underwriter partner. They're the big conglomerate that, yes, they're issuing the policies, but it's me.
It's your
on the line.
reputation.
It's my reputation.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that I do right by customers.
Yeah.
So what is if the stars align and you get a file, what's like the fastest you can close?
Oh my goodness. If it's cash and the liens are clear, there's no attorneys involved as far as mortgage payoffs. It's just a regular, bank payoff that I could possibly get within 3 to 5 days. I could probably close in like 10 days.
Really?
About 10 days. And an underwriter will give me their product within 3 days normally. But what takes a little longer are the municipal searches. So the municipal searches from the township itself. Those are a little trickier depending on where you are.
Okay.
I had one that was, in Marion Oaks, in Marion County. They just took forever just to give us the full lien search. They gave us.
They probably had to go back to the
permits.
Rolodex and just flip through the manual
Goodness,
papers.
great. Well, yes, different areas, they're still doing everything very antiquated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
Very antiquated.
So then what's the longest you've ever had to take for a closing?
Oh, I just lost one this morning. Which is why I was here a little later. I've had it for over 2 months, and the buyer was an investor that did not want to wait any longer. And my seller is MIA right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I've had that for over 2 months already, out of pocket for certain things because even the lien search company will not refund my fees because it was over 30 days. We have certain guidelines where they can, the cancellation can be a wash and they won't charge us. So I'm out of pocket as a title agent.
Wow.
A lot of folks don't realize that as a title agent, sometimes we have to front quite a bit of fees. And if a transaction goes sour or it dies,
that's on you, isn't it?
It's really on us. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes.
So as a contractor, there are times when we'll perform a job for somebody, but we won't get paid until closing. How common is that?
All the time.
Is it?
All the time. Many times the owner or the seller does not have the fees to pay for the job, up front. Mm-hmm. But they want to make right by the new homeowner, the new buyer. So,
right.
They might, hire you all and say, hey, hole in the wall, can you come? I had a son who was just playing darts in the house and he ripped up the walls and I need you to come in and do all that.
You know what the common one is? The home inspector stepped through the garage ceiling.
Oh, boy.
We actually get that a half a dozen times a year.
Oh, I can imagine. I've heard that before. And they don't have the money to, or they don't want to pay for it up front. So we do have, it is very common. And what we do is we just ask for an invoice. And then we, out of our escrow account, then we assure that the contractors are being paid. But yeah, that happens quite a bit. We get that a lot. AC repairs, cleaning, hauling out trash.
Yeah.
So for like folks that have lived in that home for over 30 years, long periods of time where they just, you just collect stuff.
It's true.
Your kids are growing up. You don't want to throw anything away, and you just, you have everything just stacking up.
Yep.
So we see that quite a bit. Yeah, that's common.
I got a couple more things. One would be, what are some pitfalls that as someone selecting a title agent we need to look for? What are some things we need to look for when we're selecting that person to be our title agent?
As a title agent, you have to be licensed in order to have an operation. So you have to be licensed, and once you're licensed, you have to be approved through the state. Not only yourself, but your agency has to be licensed through the state. And then have a good reputation. I mean, look at the reviews that they have. Because I've seen some of the title agencies right now that are growing, and I'm happy. I'm not the kind of person who's, not happy for anyone's success, but they don't have good reviews. They don't have good customer service. They don't have a good background.
Yeah, and you know what? In this day and age, it's hard to hide bad behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It comes out.
And it's really sad though too, because sometimes you'll have that one bad situation where the customer might not be happy, whatever it may be. Maybe they're just not a happy person, and of course, then they'll give someone a bad review. So things happen, but I think that looking at reviews, I think it's huge right now. Looking at reviews, looking at the website, just looking to see, what their availability is. Do they answer calls? Are they present? Will they? I'm one that I work on files even before I get them. So I'll have some of my partners that'll call me and say, I'm working on this tricky one. Do you want to start looking at it? Yes. Because I want to make sure that we're ready. So when we do have a buyer, it's not going to take me 60 days. If we have a buyer, then we can close in 30 days or 25 days, whenever their lender's ready.
Right.
Just really looking to communication, I think, is huge. 5-star reviews, looking to see if you can see whether or not if they have underwriters that are vouching for them, like supporting them. You'll see that on the websites too.
So one of the dangers that I've been told is, like, when you're transferring a lot of money. So at some point, the bank is sending money, or the homeowner is sending money, and wire transfers and all kinds of stuff. And
literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe even millions in some transactions, I'm sure.
So, I mean, what are some ways that we can ensure that we're protected when we start doing those transactions?
Well, you need to be sure that the person that is going to be handling your funds has a process. And it's not just, hey, I have wiring instructions, I'm going to send them to you. Emails are hacked now. There are spoofing emails that will... I've done training on fraud and wire fraud, and folks are creating email addresses that look perfectly like the other individual's email. There's just so many things that you have to look out for now, and you have to be careful. I myself do not, so part of my process, my wiring instructions are not complete. They are missing the last digits on the instructions on the account. They are sent only to the individual that is going to be sending the wire.
Oh, that's clever.
I do not send it to my realtor partners. I do not send it to anyone. I send it directly to the person that I'm speaking to, and I ask them to call me directly. So they have to call me to get the last 4 digits. So there's no way that information could have been switched in any way before they go to send a wire.
That's really good.
So the danger is, just to clarify for the listeners, is the danger is if someone else kind of spoofs that email or, calls and says, oh yeah, what's your last 4 digits? You're transferring hundreds of thousands of dollars to the wrong account.
And it's just gone.
And it's like it's gone.
Well,
like you can't recover a lot of that, right?
You can sometimes, but the FBI they're swamped with these cases. So they only will look at things that are like above $1 million. So the average homeowner, the purchases are not, you're not handling money like that. So they're out. They're out of luck. And if the money is transferred internationally, the minute that they get it, that money's gone. The money's gone.
That's scary.
That is sobering, I'll tell you.
So for a seller, part of the SMART process is, and this morning I was working on sending monies to a seller. Once I received the instructions, our process is for another individual besides myself. We have a 2-factor review. So I have someone else on my team review those instructions and call the individual. So I tell them at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you. Please be available with your banking information in front of you. And we have to go over all those numbers, all the information with them, their bank name, the address, the routing number, the account number, who the individual is. It's not just calling and saying, oh, yeah, hey, what's your account number? We have to make sure that we have everything. And then whoever is doing that second review has to sign that informational page and initial it, date stamped, and who they spoke to. And we do that with our mortgage payoffs. Any piece of anything that's being wired, we have to go through that process. And it's part of what I do. And I did this before in my former role, and we were never hacked. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to just be diligent.
So, quick change of direction. You are a very successful entrepreneur, no doubt about it. And I wonder what your future holds. What are your future plans for Excellence Title?
That's a biggie.
But what are your hopes and dreams?
Personal or business-wise?
Well, I'm more interested in the business. But you're welcome.
My heart just melts. My goal, and I'm very blessed, and I use that word in a very warm way. My goal was to open up a second location before the end of 2023. An opportunity came about with someone that I was introduced to co-share space, and I was able to open a location in Winter Garden.
Oh, how exciting.
Just May was my first month, but technically signs are not even going up till today, this morning.
So I see growth is on the horizon for you.
I do have big plans for the company. I don't want to share them all. But yes, I do. My goal is to have a third location in 2024 and grow my team. I want to be able to service Central Florida very easily. I don't want to feel as though I cannot service my partner in Lake Nona or my partner in Seminole County in Sanford, or I want to be able to have a team that will help me do that. I know that I can't do this alone. I know I'm saying quite a bit, and I shouldn't do that. But and that's because I start dreaming. You see, you said, what are my hopes and dreams?
Listen,
and then
I'm an entrepreneur. I get it. But
then you're just like, what do I want?
But don't you find this to be true? As an entrepreneur, my 2 favorite questions are, what do you suppose happens when, or what's it look like if? And I ask these questions around here all the time, and I've always asked myself those questions. What does, for you, what does it look like if I open one new branch every year? What do you suppose happens when, And those are great questions coming from an entrepreneur. And I see that you have the entrepreneur gene. Yeah.
It's just a very exciting world to be in. And I always say title is vital. Folks need title. We are like the nurses. We are like the doctors. Those are vital roles. And I think that as a title agent, because we're insurance agents.
Sure.
We are necessary. And that's why I always say title is vital. Folks don't realize what it takes and what is necessary. You can't invest, you can't buy, you can't sell property without title insurance, or you shouldn't. And if you're thinking of doing that, let me hit you over the head with something.
Well, you have an obvious enthusiasm for it.
I can give you the horror stories of things that have come up, even having title insurance, because we're able to help you at that point. But
that's a great stamp. That's a great title is vital.
Title is.
I love it. I think that's a great place that we can put an end to this podcast. It's been fascinating. I want our audience to know how they can get a hold of you, how they can grab a hold of Excellence Title Partners and work with you. What's the best way?
Best way is to call my cell, which is 305-321-4326. My direct email is Annette@excellencetitlepartners.com. And you can always call the office, 689-345-5550. And we're always here to answer any questions.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well,
and thank you for sharing your enthusiasm about it. You have made title more interesting than I've ever, and I've been real estate investing for a while, but your enthusiasm is contagious.
See? Look at that smile. She's great.
See?
I know, right?
And I tried not to laugh.
And I told you I
much.
liked her before I even knew her.
Well, thanks for coming in, Annette. I can't wait for this to come out and hopefully drive some business your way as well. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been a great show.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for
both.
coming.
We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.